welcome to another edition of Left Field Cinema. My name is Mike Dawson, and this week, analysis, the first 5 minutes of Die Hard. Exposition and setup are crucial to the success of a large number of films. What distinguishes the superior films is the ease and subtlety with which both exposition and setup are revealed and or explored. John McTiernan's 1988 action classic Die Hard is widely considered one of the greatest action movies ever made. Personally, it is one of my favourite films of all time. It's not without its flaws, but it is endlessly enjoyable. Despite belonging to the action genre, it is not the film's action set pieces which make it so memorable. It is the combination of all the elements which make cinema what it is: performance, character, dialogue, direction, and of course, story. But perhaps more than any other aspect of Die Hard, its screenplay by Jeb Stewart and Stephen E. D'Souza, based on the novel Nothing Lasts Forever by Roderick Thorpe, is possibly the most impressive. In combination with McTiernan's direction and Bruce Willis's performance as John McClane, the first 5 minutes of Die Hard establishes its character, setting, and themes in the most economic fashion possible.
You don't like flying, do you?
What gives you that idea?
You want to know the secret to surviving air travel? After you get where you're going, take off your shoes and your socks. Then you walk around on the rug barefoot and make fists with your toes.
Fists with your toes.
I know. It sounds crazy. Trust me, I've been doing it for 9 years. Yes, sir, better than a shower and a hot cup of coffee.
Okay. It's okay, I'm a cop. Trust me. I've been doing this for 11 years.
The captain and crew would like to welcome you to Los Angeles. Have a very Merry Christmas.
My bag here.
How do you do, Domo. Arigato.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to congratulate each and every one of you for making this one of the greatest years in the history of the Nakatomi Corporation. On behalf of the Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Ozu, and the Board of Directors, we thank you one and all and wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Hey, Holly. What about dinner tonight, huh?
Harry, it's Christmas Eve. Families, stockings, chestnuts, Rudolph and Frosty. Any of these things ring a bell?
Actually, I was thinking more of mulled wine, an ice-aged brie, and a roaring fireplace. You know what I'm saying?
Ginny, it's 5:40. Go join the party, have some champagne. You're making me feel like Ebenezer Scrooge.
Thanks a lot, Miss De Niro. Do you think the baby can handle a little sip?
That baby's ready to tend bar.
Last chance.
Bye.
McLean residence. Lucy McLean speaking.
Hello, Lucy McLean. This is your mother speaking.
Mommy, when are you coming home?
Pretty soon. Pretty soon. You'll be in bed when I get there, though. Let me talk to Paulina, okay, hon? And no snooping around the house looking for presents.
Is Daddy coming home with you?
Well, we'll see what Santa and Mommy can do, okay? Put Paulina on. Bye, honey.
Paulina!
Hola, Mrs. Holly.
Did Mr. McLean call?
No, Mrs. Holly. No telefono.
Well, he probably just didn't have time before his flight. It might be a good idea to make up the spare bedroom just in case.
See, Mrs. Holly. I do that already.
What would I do without you, Paulina?
California.
We are not including the 20th Century Fox logo at the beginning of the film. Our counter begins at the start of the caption, a Gordon Company Silver Pictures production, over which the sounds of aeroplanes can be clearly heard. 5 seconds into the film, we cut from this caption over a black mat to a runway as a large passenger plane lands. From this first shot, there are many implications. Firstly, the sky is a dark orange colour, indicating that we are beginning somewhere hot. The darkness suggests evening or dawn. The second shot begins on a man's hand, a left hand with a ring on the ring finger, indicating that the man is married. The sound of the plane can still be heard, so we know that the shot is from within the plane that just landed. The hand grips the seat. From this we can infer that the man is a nervous flyer. The shot lifts to reveal another man in a shirt, tie and waistcoat. He is reading a magazine, not gripping his chair. From his appearance, before we even see his face, we can assume that this man is a frequent flyer, possibly a businessman given that he's flying in a suit. His face is revealed, he's in his 30s or 40s. The shot slowly zooms out and he utters the first line of the film. "You don't like flying, do you?" As these words are uttered, the man who has been gripping the chair is revealed. He is also in his 30s or 40s. He is John McLean. But we do not yet know this. He replies to the businessman, "What gives you that idea?" with a wry grin on his face, as if to suggest, "Am I that obvious?" Or perhaps, "Don't ask stupid questions, you jerk." If this is what McLean's smile is attempting to indicate to the man, it fails, as the businessman continues to advise McLean that the secret to surviving air travel is to take your shoes off when you get where you're going and walk around on the rug barefoot and make fists with your toes. Almost a minute into the film and we still don't know where this is going. Who is the main character? Is it our businessman who likes to impart homegrown wisdom on incidental travelling companions, or is it the gentleman he's sat next to? The next cut is crucial in our evaluation. The third shot of the film is a close-up of McLean's face, which fills the right-hand side of the frame. He gives the businessman an incredulous look and asks, "Fists with your toes?" as if he didn't hear him correctly. We cut back to the businessman, who confirms our suspicions and proves that he is indeed a frequent flyer, and also astute enough to read McLean's doubtful tone. The businessman assures McLean that although it sounds crazy, he should trust him as he's been flying for 9 years. "Yes, sir, better than a shower and a hot cup of coffee," he enthusiastically proclaims. McLean coughs okay, as if he's still not entirely convinced. So far, McLean has been framed in close-up shots and the businessman has been framed in mid-shots, indicating that it is McLean who is of greater importance. We cut to a wide as the passengers stand up and get ready to disembark the plane. McLean stands up also and goes to grab his bag. The film cuts to the businessman, his face suddenly changed from smiling and full of life to serious and worried as he sees something. McLean has a firearm holstered under his jacket, as is revealed by a reverse shot. The businessman looks up to McLean, and McLean takes an amused moment to both reassure the man and turn his last line of dialogue against him. "It's okay, I'm a cop."
Trust me. I've been doing this for 11 years.
McClane's half smile is still present. He opens up the compartment above the chairs and pulls out a large teddy bear with a big red bow around its neck. As he does, his attention is diverted to a young attractive female flight attendant who throws him a flirtatious glance. McClane doesn't break eye contact as she passes him by. He even takes a second look behind him as he heads towards the exit, his eyes changing from cheeky to nervousness, as if he didn't expect such a look from such a young woman. Over the intercom, a female member of the cabin crew welcomes the passengers to Los Angeles and wishes them a very Merry Christmas. We are now 1 minute and 30 seconds into the film and at the end of the very first scene. And what do we know? We know that the character of McClane is a cop. We know that he has lots of experience. We know that he's arrived in Los Angeles for Christmas and has a very large present in his luggage. A teddy bear. A present either for a spouse, but more likely for a child. We know he's married, from the ring, but conversely we also know he's not afraid to hold a flirtatious glance with another woman with whom he is unacquainted, indicating that he may well be estranged from his wife or has loose morals when it comes to fidelity. From his reactions to the businessman's methods for surviving air travel, we can assume that McClane is a man who doesn't suffer fools gladly. He isn't nasty to the man, but he doesn't give his statements any form of sincere recognition. More than this, we know that despite being a cop and dealing with criminals for a living and carrying a piece of weapon with him even on airplanes, McClane is also an uneasy flyer. Perhaps afraid of putting his life in others' hands, or perhaps one who prefers to keep his feet on the ground. Trust issues, perhaps. This is what we know, and this is what we've inferred from the scene or extrapolated from the evidence. But what does this all set up? A cop as a protagonist indicates perhaps this is a story about crime. At this point, we don't know if Los Angeles is home or a new place for McClane. We know that it's Christmas. So despite having a gun, McClane is in all likeliness either returning to a loved one or visiting a loved one. But more important than all of this is the businessman's suggestion that McClane takes off his shoes when he reaches his destination, for later terrorists will attack McClane in his destination while he is doing what the man suggests, thus leaving McClane in the awkward position of fighting for his life barefoot and being forced to run over pieces of severed glass at a crucial juncture. This is one of the main obstacles McClane must face in his dealings with the violent terrorists later in the story, and it is set up within the first 90 seconds of the film before we even know our protagonist's name. The next scene takes place inside the airport terminal. McClane arrives and places a cigarette in his mouth. Before he does so, the title Die Hard appears on the screen. The title conjures a series of images about the film we are about to see. The term refers to someone who doesn't give up easily. Perseverance, being hard to kill, hard to stop. The word die, through association alone, conjures death, destruction, pain, violence, murder, manslaughter, etc. The word hard brings with it its own set of associations, tough, solid, strong, etc. Crucially, the film's score by Michael Kamen begins with the shot and the title reveal. The sound of Christmas sleigh bells and dark strings combine to create a contradictory sound. Serious Christmas. An oxymoronic term, but that is what we hear. McClane lights a cigarette and inhales, waiting for his bags to arrive. The cigarette and the giant teddy bear are contradictory and set up another image for McClane. An anti-hero, smoking, a family man, teddy bear. The third scene of Die Hard shifts locations drastically. At close to 2 minutes into the film, we shift locations to the Nakatomi Plaza, a 40-story building, although at this point we don't know that yet. A Japanese man steps out of a well-furnished office. He is Joseph Takagi, although his identity is yet to be established also. He buttons up his jacket and greets some people outside of his office, walks past a group of musicians playing a light piece of classical music. He walks to a balcony overlooking a large group of men and women and a very prominent Christmas tree. He calls for their attention and he gets it almost instantly. He congratulates the men and women on this being one of the most successful years in the history of the Nakatomi Corporation. As he does, a woman can be seen walking out of an elevator through the crowd, her focus not on Takagi, but on the paperwork in her hands. She is clearly working late, as everyone else has begun a Christmas party. The woman walks down an office corridor. A man in a black jacket approaches her from behind and identifies her as Holly when he asks her if she fancies dinner tonight. She identifies him as Harry and clarifies that it is in fact Christmas Eve, and proceeds to give him a list of reasons why she can't go to dinner with him, family commitments, etc. Her tone indicates that she hasn't seriously considered his offer for a second, and a smile on Harry's face as he walks backwards, watching her reaction, indicates that he was only half serious, as her brush off is not in the least bit offensive to him. Despite this, Harry continues to elaborate on his dinner plans: a roaring fireplace, some mulled wine, a nice aged brie. Harry's appearance and attitude towards Holly, and taste in food and drink, indicates that he is the opposite of McLean's mocking, smoking copper. Holly takes a deep breath by the door to her office, as if attempting to appease him with a mock surrender, before entering her lavish office, telling her pregnant assistant to join the party because she's making her feel like Ebenezer Scrooge. Holly sits in a large leather-backed chair, as expensive as anything else in the office, and picks up the phone. Harry light-heartedly extends his offer, last chance. Holly mockingly replies, bye, and spins the chair around to face away from him. We change location again. This time there are two children playing on the kitchen floor of a normal domestic house. The phone rings and the young girl runs to it, answers and identifies herself as Lucy McLean, and that this is in fact the McLean residence. Cut back to the office. Holly identifies herself as Lucy's mother and thus establishes that her second name in all likeliness is also McLean. In Holly's office, the shot pans left across a series of family portraits, whilst Holly tells Lucy that she'll be in bed by the time Holly gets home. The shot comes to rest on one family portrait in particular, which shows Lucy, the young boy she was playing with, presumably her brother, Holly, and then John McLean. Although we still don't know his first name, we can in fact assume that his second name is McLean from now on. Lucy asks if Daddy is coming home. Holly appeases the question by telling Lucy to wait and see what Mummy and Santa can do. At this point we can see the sun setting in the distance behind Holly, and it is clear that Holly is in a tall building and fairly high up. Holly asks to speak to Pauline. Lucy hands the phone to her. Pauline greets Holly with the word hola, Spanish for hello, establishing her language is probably not English. The implication is that she may not be a US national given her age and is possibly from Mexico, although there is not enough evidence to establish this for certain. Holly asks if Mr. McLean has called. Pauline, in her broken English, explains that no one has called. A slight moment of disappointment can be read from Holly's face. Disappointment for herself or for her children, we're not sure. Holly makes an excuse for this and then requests that Pauline makes up the spare bed just in case. If there was any doubt about the status of John and Holly's marriage, it has just been clarified. They are not sleeping with each other, they are estranged. McLean doesn't live in the same town. In fact, he needs a flight to get there. Holly, Lucy and the other child are in residence in this town. John is not, and at the least lives hundreds of miles away. After Holly hangs up the phone, she exhales, now more visibly disappointed that John hasn't called, and turns to the one family portrait he is present in and turns it down onto the shelf so that she doesn't have to look at his face. In this sequence we've established quite a lot. For instance, it is now safe to assume that Holly is on a much higher income than her estranged husband. A cop anywhere in America isn't going to be paid as much as someone in Holly's position or someone with Holly's office. Everyone else is at the party. She is the only one still working, indicating that she is career-minded. Despite having a young family to look after, she is clearly devoted to her career and is independent of her husband's comparatively small pay package. There is also more in this sequence in terms of setups for Harry, Holly's assistant, Pauline and Takagi. Harry has proved himself to be a silk-tongued go-getter, not afraid to ask for what he wants. He will ultimately try to defuse the situation with his tongue and will be shot in the face for his trouble. His confidence is his undoing in the end, and his death is a welcome reminder of how high the stakes are when the situation escalates. Holly's rejection and later the competition in the form of McLean spur Harry on to try and bring the crisis to an end, perhaps to prove to Holly that he is indeed worthy of a dinner date after all. Holly's assistant is heavily pregnant, but rather than fall into the stereotypical hostage gives birth scenario, the story instead uses her pregnancy as a reason for Holly to negotiate with the terrorists, leading to her introduction to their leader Hans and her eventual kidnapping during the film's last act. Pauline's language difficulties and age establishes her as an immigrant, a fact that a TV journalist will later exploit in the story to get an interview with young Lucy, an interview which will expose Holly as John's wife to Hans and lead to her kidnapping. Takagi is established as a powerful public speaker, confident and standing above his workers and congratulating them all. His confidence and his leadership would keep them all together, but when Hans executes him shortly after taking the party hostage, that confidence is killed and the group is now terrified. Takagi quickly establishes himself in the following 5 minutes as a powerful and confident man, perhaps the most confident in the film. So his death at the hands of Hans demonstrates Hans's own confidence and power clearer than any other action could. It also hands over power and confidence to McClane, who witnesses Takagi's murder and realizes the severity of the situation. Back to the airport. McClane has finished his cigarette, has his bags, and walks with a large crowd of Christmas travellers towards the exit. As he does, a young woman with blonde hair runs past him and jumps into an embrace of a young man walking behind him. McClane briefly observes this reunion.
California.
This line finally gives us a firmer grip on where exactly we are. In all likelihood, McClane has come from the east of the US, given his dismissive attitude towards the exhibitionist behaviour of the young couple he has just passed, and his no-nonsense East Coast attitude towards the overt public display of affection. As he continues through the airport, a man with a cardboard sign and the name J. McClane can be seen. McClane finally identifies himself by stating to the man with the sign,
"Hey, I'm John McClane."
And that brings us to the end of the first 5 minutes of Die Hard. At this point, we still don't know where the plotline is going. Ultimately, through the rest of the film, a group of European criminals will take over the Nakatomi Plaza, and John McClane attempts to stop them and save the life of his wife. Key parts of the story and the personalities of minor characters have also been established with pure economy. The exposition and setup has been seamlessly incorporated into the dialogue and actions of the characters. The characters are rounded and grounded, and the more time elapses, the greater the sense of detail becomes. As the story unfolds, we learn more and more about these men and women, despite the supposed limitations of the action genre. Even though essentially the story of Die Hard is yet to be set up, the themes of Die Hard and the central relationship between Holly and John has been established without a word of dialogue between the two characters. Ultimately, Die Hard is about McClane's attempt to save his marriage, not about stopping the criminal gang. But through stopping the criminal gang, he will ultimately save his marriage. If the saving of a marriage, the McClane marriage, is the real theme within the film, then it has been clearly established within these first 5 minutes. And that concludes my analysis, the first 5 minutes of Die Hard. If you've enjoyed this show and you'd like to comment on it, or if you'd like to talk about the rest of Die Hard, there are a number of minutes following the ones I've described, then you can do so by going to leftfieldcinema.com and joining the forum there and join the debate.